Awesome. Hi, everyone. How's everyone doing today? I am Dani Black. I'm the Chief Revenue Officer of AppWork, and I want to give our panelists a chance to introduce themselves and show off a little.
Hi, everyone. I'm Vanessa Siebern. I am Division President at Asset Living. I was formerly with FPI for 20 years. So industry's worst kept secret, FPI was sold to Asset Living. There you go. Happy to be here.
Hi, everybody. My name is Angelina Scarcelli, and I'm with Colliers International. I'm the Regional Managing Director for the West here. Been with the company for about 14 years and in the industry 25. And just thank you all for being here. We know we're fighting lunchtime, so we appreciate you guys being here.
Hey, everyone. Jeff Carleton. I'm the co-founder, CEO of Runwise. I started Runwise because I was a property operator managing buildings and found how hard it was to actually operate them efficiently. And I said, maybe tech could help solve this problem. And those are the type of products that we built. Really excited to be here and looking forward to the conversation.
Amazing. Thank you, everyone. So I'm going to just dive right in. You know, we're here to talk about the property manager reboot, really redefining the role for a new era. And we've got some questions that we have talked through, but I'm going to maybe change it up and see if we can get a little exciting. So, our first question, when your team looks at, oops, that's the wrong one. What do you guys feel was the impetus for the shift in the property manager role at your own companies? And when do you feel there was a specific inflection point?
I think without a doubt it was COVID. I think it shifted all of us in the way we were thinking and the way we were operating immediately overnight. We had to take everything that we were doing forever, because that's how we always did it, and completely flip-flop it and change it to accommodate all of the pivoting that we did during the COVID period. And so I think that was the biggest influx point and kind of moved us in a more technology forward industry for sure.
I would have to agree. I think that COVID was the initiator. And then what followed thereafter were labor shortages, which I'm sure you guys have all experienced. So it's really caused us to think forward, create efficiencies, and really look to the future with technology.
I do want to clarify that I am not a property manager anymore. I am the only non-property operator up here. Our inflection point also was COVID in many, many ways because, well, it's COVID and like apps. And I'll explain. The industry that when I started building products for operators was desktop computers, like come in, log in. That was the life of property manager. And as more and more people shifted over to apps and phones, we didn't even realize it. So like an inflection point for us one day when we were working on the desktop was, you know, that 90% of our people, Jeff, are on the app. So that was like a real moment when I realized that managers with all that they have going on right now are often not sitting in front of computers. They're on their phones and they're at buildings. And that's when we really start to like change our approach a lot.
So now that we understand the inflection point, I'd love to get your guys' take on just how is the role shifting? You know, it's been evolving as buildings and properties become smarter or more data driven and experience focused. What's your take on what shifts have actually happened?
I think it's absolutely shifted from when I was a manager on site. I mean, you used to just have to take the checks and take them to the bank and deposit them. Now there's a whole bunch of tech. So there's an app for everything. And so what we really focus on is making sure all of those apps and all the technology talks to each other in a seamless process. Like, has anybody gone online and applied for their apartments recently? It is a very tough process. And sometimes it's very enlightening that's what our end user, that's what our residents are dealing with on a daily basis is. And if you don't have a sophisticated staff, a sophisticated manager who can handle the tech, then you're going to be completely behind the times.
I would have to agree. I think that a lot of our management teams interfacing with their clients were service providers. And now the clients are looking to us to be service advisors. So there has to be an understanding around the tech that is evolving so rapidly. And I think that, going from manual routines typically in the past to now really data-driven decision making, it's a real big shift that's happening.
When I was a operator and I was dealing a lot with mechanical systems, so at that time, and Runwise helps boilers operate more efficiently and tracks water leaks. That's what our tech does. Back when I was operating buildings, it was, hey, there might be an issue with the boiler, go on site. So there's a lot of like physical going around, fixing problems time and time again. And then the role was very much reactive because you had no idea what was happening at your properties. You didn't know if you had leaks. You didn't know if your boilers were down. You didn't know if you had problems, typically until you got a phone call telling you so from the super, or worse is like an angry resident calling, say, I have no heat or I have no hot water. That sort of stuff isn't really acceptable anymore. People just want better uptime, more proactive service. So I think we try to build things to allow property managers to like be ahead, to find out issues, find out problems that could potentially affect uptime and service proactively, like rather than reactively. So that's really been like a major shift that I've seen.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that leads really well into just discussing a little bit about the skills or the specific competencies that are really essential now for property managers, both on-site and centralized as companies are moving more to those centralized models. And as they balance operations and technology and kind of rising tenant and resident expectations, right? We live in this culture of instant gratification now. So we expect that in all forms of life. I'm
Yeah. I can help with that. So I think that, I hate to keep bringing up COVID, but post-COVID, it really affected a generation of workers, right? We went from COVID to then we went to wage inflation where everybody needed to make more to do their jobs. It was what's in it for me. And then it was title inflation because everybody was a vice president or higher. And they were, quite frankly, not qualified for those roles. They were, managers that were just promoted prematurely because we needed to fill space. We need to fill positions. So I think that caused a big ripple effect in our industry. And we can't forget that, our leasing agents and our maintenance techs, they're entry-level positions, but they are the most important positions that we have on our properties. And they're the positions that we can never get rid of because ultimately multifamily, we are a customer service industry. We're very similar to hospitality. So if we're not providing that top-notch customer service experience, we're not going to get the residents to stay. And ultimately, the focus should be now on renewals and retention instead of getting people in the front door. We need to close the back door and keep them longer so that we can really build community.
I would absolutely agree with that. I think that some of the newer skills obviously are being able to interpret data, being able to have really an analytical mindset, but at the same time, not losing the human touch. I mean, the relationships that we establish with our teams, amongst our tenants and our clients, regardless of the AI and how fast the technology is moving, that's what is heart-centric as far as actually being able for retention to be kept and those types of things.
I think also we spend a lot of time, like in my job, I have to solve problems all day. I mean, that's my job. Fortunately, I didn't know what I was signing up for, but I did. And so I get these crazy problems and it all comes back to training. So if we're giving the teams the foundation and training them correctly and continuing to train, then we're going to continue to level up a whole generation of employees that will eventually promote up to the higher roles. So I think that is a really important feature that everybody should focus on. And there's a lot of tech associated with training and giving them the skills to do their jobs.
100%. For those of you that don't know, AppWork is a maintenance software. And one of our core tenets with working with our clients is actually in-person training for teams. We actually come on site and train technicians. And we do that because we understand the value and the importance of that. At the outset, they need to be engaged and excited and continually focusing on that training aspect.
And I absolutely love that. I'm in California and most West Coast states, although I do go to Florida. But there's laws for the food workers. They make a minimum wage of $22 an hour or something silly like that. So that has really challenged us now that we have maintenance technicians and grounds people that we have to pay $22 an hour in order to compete, or they'll go to In-N-Out and make $24.95 plus benefits. I mean, are you kidding me right now? So we've really been challenged with hiring good quality technicians to turn units and make repairs. And my favorite story is I had a guy who came into an interview and he had no experience. I was like, so do you know how to use YouTube? And he's like, yeah, I can use YouTube. And so I'm like, okay, well, whenever you need to repair something, look it up on YouTube. It'll tell you how to do it. Trust me, I just fixed my dryer last weekend. So this guy has promoted up now. He's a regional maintenance supervisor and he's killing it. But he got into the industry, he had enthusiasm and dedication and training to do the job. So we need more people like that, in my opinion.
Those people that are actually willing to learn,
Yes.
right? The ones that are motivated.
Yeah,
Yeah.
unfortunately, we have a whole generation of people that are like, I don't want to work, but you can pay me. And by the way, I want to work from home
Ooh, that
too.
sounds great. I would like to do that.
I think with like the volume in New York of like regulations as well. I mean, I'm not familiar with like New York City. It seems like there's a new regulation every single day, whether it's for energy or scaffolds or parapets. There's so much volume that a property manager these days, it seems it's impossible for them to manually do everything. So anyone that is sort of like resistant to change, resistant to tech, it's not how, hey, this would be easier for you. I think it's really evolved into like, you cannot possibly do your job if you're not working towards automation.
I think, property managers today are very increasingly expected to do things like, I think, Angelina, you mentioned interpreting data, reading it through analytics, and they're not just executing on tasks. How are you guys equipping teams through either internal strategy or external partnerships to translate those analytics that they're having to interpret into kind of actionable decisions to drive the asset performance?
I think a lot of what you just mentioned, having companies like yourself come in and actually really do formalized training around what it is that our expectations are. But there's also a piece, like I said before, the willingness to be able to really adapt and learn and evolve, right? So I think it's not just the skill set piece, but it's also like a different level of understanding and trying to create an environment where people are open-minded and want to learn and are willing to adapt to these new changing, evolving landscapes.
Yeah. With the cost of utilities, starting to know about how much, like in the past, if you were to ask me when I was a property manager, how much fuel should this building use or how much water should it use? Most of them would have no idea. So like part of the new data with like the cost of fuel and water is like budgeting and knowing those things. And I think it helps rather than saying, hey, we're going to roll out a new program. It's like, how much water should a property consume per unit per day? And we
I have no idea.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah. So ideally we're going, for about 100, right? So like some clear benchmarks. New York City rolled something out where there are letter grades. So now people can see if your building is burning too much fuel, you have a D or an F in front of your building. So I think without any so those benchmarks, I think at least help train people towards like, what goal are we trying to hit?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's also important to note that your property managers, as they are expanding their horizons within their roles and adopting new technologies, I think the technologies themselves also play that key role in order to establish those benchmarks. Because without that technology, it's hard to understand where you're actually sitting.
Yeah, and you need to make sure that the technology talks to each other. Like my analogy is always, I'm the captain of a cruise ship. I would really like to be the activity director because I think that would be way more fun. But I'm driving this cruise ship and it takes a series of maneuvers to keep the ship on course, right? And one bad implementation, one bad rollout can get the ship way off course. I can lose passengers. Like it can really set us up for some failure. So you have to be really strategic on the stuff that you're doing and how you're rolling it out and how it all talks to each other so that you're not getting derailed. And you have to have the buy-in of the team or else they're not going to use it. And we have to really also focus on the needs to have. Like you need to be able to deposit your rents every month and you need to make sure that it's automated. Thank you, Terry. And you need to make that's an essential. So all of the other stuff, when you're analyzing it and looking at it, is that essential for the role or is that just going to complicate them more? It's pretty cool. I like the bell and whistle, but do we have the bandwidth to train? And does the team have the bandwidth to retain and learn about it?
I think, it makes that really doubling down on that, trying to understand, like, as the technology stacks do expand, how are you ensuring alignment between corporate teams and your on-site teams and solution partners and really making sure that deployments don't go awry?
Well, I think it's a true partnership, that's for sure. And, in the ops world, we think we rule because we're operating the buildings. It's a big deal. But ultimately, our support departments, our support services are really the backbone of what really makes things happen. So you have to have that collaboration. If you don't have that collaboration, it's going to be an epic fail. So, when we're looking at rollouts or we're looking at implementing something new, there's so much strategy. It's test, a lot of testing, a lot of piloting. And then once we've worked out the bugs, then it's like, okay, let's roll. This is going to be good. So that's
Right. I agree. I think that a lot of thought goes behind the rollouts and the test marketing and all those things. I mean, there's a lot of shiny pennies out there that it's like, oh, okay, this could be really great. But when you have such large scale companies, the shift and the momentum and moving this way, like the effect after could be so detrimental to your business. So definitely collaborative approaches with our partners. I think that's a big thing. But also sampling with the test marketing for the specific teams that'll be utilizing the tech, the boots on the ground folks, like those people, like the everyday like users of what we would be doing.
I find the on the ground users to be the most important part of it because I've done many a project in the past where I got buy-in, at the corporate level on top, and I would sort of like think that meant that this project was going to go well because like corporate was going to like make the on-site people follow, and I've learned that. Yeah, so I've learned that lesson. So
but corporate doesn't always have it figured out, and so that's where we have to be the means tester. Like pump. I just had this yesterday. I'm like, whoa, pump the brakes. That's not going to work.
Yeah.
Come on, people. So I think having that global awareness and looking at what is impacting, each level of the org is really important so that you can back in a plan to it.
Some of the most success that we see with our partners is oftentimes when you have a representative from every level of your company in the room when you're making the decisions on the tech that you're bringing forward. So it's not just on after you've signed the contract and pilot, like getting the buy-in early and having a couple of key influencers within your organization that are going to be your power users on a new project. I've seen that be incredibly successful with aligning corporate teams and onsite, because oftentimes I think we as partners are selling to you in corporate, and we if your teams are not going to use our product, you might as well flush money down the toilet.
Yeah, exactly. I think so. What we've done is we established a committee. It's a lot of committees, but anytime there's a project or a rollout or something that we need to manage, we put together a committee, and it's all the stakeholders. It's, back office, it's operations, it's executive level, and they dissect whatever we're doing and come up with a plan. And we check in every 6 weeks on all of our committees. Sometimes people are nominated. Sometimes they're voluntold that that's what they need to do, but we're looking for the subject matter experts in each category. And it really has improved our rollouts and our implementation. So it's a good idea if anybody wants to copy.
And also really being selective about the partners. I mean, to your point, Dani, I think that establishing a relationship with a partner who really wants to take the time to understand your specific business, right? Because everybody has their own idiosyncrasies and their own uniqueness in their corporations and companies. So I think really having that great selection is really important.
Yeah.
What I really love is when the supplier partners they partner and they come to me and they're like, hey, we've got 3 products and we can roll them out. We'll collaborate. We'll make this happen for you. I'm like, done.
Yeah,
Take the burden off of us.
I think the on the ground training is like the most important thing. And that's what I've learned is that if I can't get, and I think that's awesome, Dani, that you guys do in person. We try to do in person like whenever we can. I mean, I was walking through the booths at the show, and every single one that I looked at made sense. I'm like, yeah, that could make things better, right? But you couldn't possibly sign up for, as far as like being selective, like 30 different apps with 30 different logins. It's just like, it's impossible. So I just view like prioritizing what actually moves the needle. And we try to be that, because we tell people our outcome is lower utility costs. Like, simple as that. Try and keep our value prop as simple as possible. But yeah, it's like, but everything, even our product, it's like a new toy. Like I had a son, I remember I had a little baby, and I said one time he really wanted this toy. I'm like, you know what? I got to get it for him, because he's like really excited about it. And that's like the new login. That's like the new adrenaline of the new project. And then when something goes wrong, as it does in every single rollout, it's like what Dani says, like people on the ground, people helping like the first time something goes wrong, getting through that first, things were better before we had to do this. And I think many a project can die in the first week or 2 weeks. And, but if you train, you get in front of it, usually have a much better chance of a successful rollout. And then of course, like to avoid people having to log into different places, we get more API requests now in the last like year. Maybe we could segue into that, because, if you're not integrating with others in this market with how busy property managers are, some people say, hey, we like your service, but send the data here, because that's where our property managers are using it. And usually those are the more successful integrations.
Yeah, Vanessa, you mentioned a couple times now just the importance of integration. Within the property manager role as a whole, I think they're probably feeling the issues when the integration goes wrong the most, because they're dealing with your residents. And some of that too, though, I think we all know this, is sometimes it's user error. So how are you guys bringing kind of both the tech native property managers and the seasoned property managers that maybe have been in the industry 30, 40 years, have had to continually adopt technology? How are you guys empowering them and bringing them and making sure that kind of everyone is feeling empowered in this evolution versus displaced?
There's a couple things that we're doing, culturally and within our organization. We've adopted an ambassador program where we have certain ambassadors that have the ability to be the leads and could be the people that help the new associates coming in or the associates that are struggling. And then we also have a coaching mentoring program where anybody in the company can be a coach and mentor individuals who want to excel. So, tech fatigue is a legit thing. And I mean, I suffer from it too sometimes. Like, I was so annoyed today that I had to go down to the front desk and I couldn't just select late checkout. Like,
oh girl.
So like, why can't I do this? I just, fine, I'll go do this. But I mean, we're so reliant on tech. And, I think that we all have such short term, or what is it called?
I don't know what HDs are, but my doctor says I have 80 of them.
That was short
my
attention
ADHD.
spans. Yeah, we have
my ADHD joke.
Same. But we all have such short attention spans. It's really, making sure that everything works together, that we're giving the proper training and support.
I would have to agree. And I think that a piece of it also is making sure that we're equipping our teams also to be efficient in change management. So not just necessarily, okay, we have the tech, savvy person and somebody who needs a little bit more support, but really cultivating an environment where change management is centric. Right? We understand that we have to meet people where they are, and everybody's at a different place. So whether it's a mentee type program, whether it's, internal training and different types of things like that, we definitely meet people where they are.
I like that, because I think it's essential in today's environment that you do have to meet people where they're capable and comfortable.
We have a rule. We every time we don't train somebody, they usually don't log in. We have two goals when we pitch to a property manager and get the actual operator to use it. Is number one, this is going to make your life easier. And we have to explain, like, this is our pitch to your like managers, is why will you log in? The why, right? So it has to be, your life will be easier. If it's not, it's going to be really, really difficult for them to do it. And then why this makes your tenant's life better, right? Because again, like, retention is super important. So we'll pitch them on, hey, like, what's the last time you got a call from a tenant that didn't have hot water? Well, that was a month ago, and that was really annoying. And those are the type of lack of service that do cause people potentially to leave buildings. So we feel like if I can explain to you why Runwise monitoring your building makes your life easier and why it helps your tenants, then I've got a good shot of a successful implementation.
I think you bring up a very good point from the partner side, that I think some of the onus also needs to be on us to get your teams excited, to really drive that engagement, the adoption of the product, because like I said earlier, if they're not going to use it, then you might as well not spend the money on it. You're not getting the outcomes that you want or need. But I do think that oftentimes we can get the contract signed and get excited, and we move into training and we forget that we're actually still selling. We still need to engage your teams and get them on board with the product at every level. I'm curious, if you guys are defining the next generation of property managers, what capability is going to sit at the top of the job description, and why?
I would say flexibility. I think our industry is filled with a lot of type A personalities, guilty, like everything has to be perfect and it has to fit into the box and you have to do it this way because that's the way we've always done it. We can't do things the way that we've always done them anymore. We have to be flexible. We have to be able to pivot, and really accommodate the needs of the community, of the client. I mean, our property managers are getting hit from every direction. They have so many owner expectations, PMA expectations, resident expectations, that finding flexibility and balance in that flexibility is going to be really essential for the future, because we're also going to need to provide that balance in order to continue to retain top talent. I think a lot of people left our industry because it's hard. It's hard being a property manager and providing homes for people. So, and sometimes they take it out on our employees, and it's sometimes a thankless job. So I think the balance and the flexibility is essential.
I think that that's extremely important. I also think that the way that we've historically looked at positions, let's just say, for example, you're a property assistant property manager, regional, whatever that looks like, that could evolve and change in the future based on what's evolving right now as far as technology. So I think being able to understand data, analytics, but also at the same time being able to really maintain, again, I mean, at the heart of what we do is good customer service and creating those relationships, because that's really what keeps people. So I think being able to have that balance of both and that integration amongst those two skills are really what will drive us forward.
I can only give you my observations as to the more effective property managers that I deal with that usually will roll out a better product. We go into a building and we change how heat runs. So one of our typical applications is you go into a building, it's 75 or 80 degrees because the boiler's running a ton. We drop it down to 72, 73. You're going to get people that complain. And I think the best property managers are able, in my observation, to set boundaries with their owners and boards. And managers that are constantly trying to appease everybody all the time end up, I know it's hard. It's easier said than done.
Boundaries, what are those?
Yeah. So I think boundaries are even just some semblance of boundaries, I think, helps, because when we deal with more junior property managers that try to keep everybody happy, it just becomes very, very challenging. And I think, property managers that can communicate bad news, right? I think a lot of times, the whole, I called my property manager and they didn't call me back, usually because there's something wrong. I think it's it's a challenge for us too, like delivering anybody bad news. So if you can deliver bad news and set boundaries and keep your owners and such in control, we'll usually have a better project with those people. But that's my secondhand view of property management. I'm sure it's a lot harder than that.
I think another one is customer service. Like, we are a customer service industry. That is what we do, is customer service all day long, be it our clients, our residents, our coworkers, and just keeping that at the front of mind that we're there for them. They're not there for us. We're there for them, and we are there to support them.
Angelina, I think during our prep, you mentioned that you want to make sure that you're also like hiring for the skills, like initially. You want to make sure that they already have some of these competencies in place. How have your hiring practices, or how has that changed with kind of this shift in focus with property managers?
I think it's been very interesting. So the way that we typically would hire candidates has completely changed. So what we're looking for is that adaptability. So somebody who comes in, interviews, and essentially is looking for a certain position, that foundational skill set of a property manager may not be what gets them the job. Them being able to be adaptable, the flexibility piece, like Vanessa mentioned, I mean, that's gigantic. You have to be able to be flexible, like in this role. And then also, like I mentioned before, I think just the openness and the willingness to learn. Right? Like, you have to be open-minded. You have to understand that we're in a changing landscape that's happening. It's evolving rapidly. So you have to be able to be open to what's next.
I think somebody told me a long time ago, enthusiasm trumps experience, and I totally believe in that. I think that there's a lot of willing people that want to do a great job and want to grow in our industry, and so we need to make sure that we're giving people the chance. I also think that AI, going to go off a little side rail, but I think AI is really going to change the way that we are recruiting and hiring people. We're using some software now that basically AI generates does the work for the manager to really get down to the best candidates for a position. And it's been wildly successful. It's totally lowered our time to fill positions. And it's made a huge impact in the short 7 months that I've been using it. So I think that's a way of the future as well.
I totally agree. So what folks might not know about me is that I used to work for Elise AI as well. And I think the onset of AI into our industry has really shaped how property managers are operating their day-to-day and the things that it's able to take off of their plates.
Oh, 100%. They're working smarter, not harder right now with AI. And there's some cool new stuff out there. Like, I was looking at I forget the name of it. I'm not supposed to say the name of it anyways, but it's basically a variance report tool where AI sweeps your financials, looks through your GLs, and it will actually generate the comments in the variance report for you instead of saying month to date over budget because we used more water. And it's like, well, why did you use more water? Like, tell me the facts. So I'm excited about that product. Got water on my mind.
That's where Jeff comes in.
Well, and that's interesting because, like I said, I mean, it's changing. I mean, the solely administrative positions that we had at the property assistant level, I mean, they may not be there in the same capacity in the future because of AI. So really, like, that foundational, assistant to APM to PM, like, that will evolve and change as well.
Yeah. And talking about water, I do think that water is going to be, I'm just going to talk about it for a second. It's going to be a very, very big thing in property management and just like building operations going forward. In New York, it gets more and more and more expensive. It's actually become more expensive than fuel. And as far as like the old school way of, let's say, like property management would be checking your bills and like, so by the
reactive,
reactive, right?
Proactive.
So you can have a running toilet that runs for months. We get quarterly bills in New York City. We're New York City based, so you can waste $8,000 or $10,000 by like that is assuming you are on top of it and you know how much your water bill should be. So again, like you could do it the old school way, and a lot of like old school managers would like know a little bit about electric, a little bit about plumbing, a little bit about the roof. I don't think that exists as much anymore in the newer generation, but it all comes down to data. Like, what are your data points? How much energy? What are your expenses, and how do you know about it? And when do you know about it? So those are like, that's what we try to solve.
They're all such important things when managing a building. It's just a matter of how do you eliminate the noise so that they can focus on those things, because those are the most important things. They affect the financial.
Yeah.
And that's your report card for the property.
So how are you helping them eliminate that noise?
So we actually have a BI tool, proprietary BI tool that we've built out with a ton of KPIs, and it's amazing. I can drill down from, somebody can tell me, well, I get a flag that there's a problem at this property, and I can drill down all the way to, like, is it a maintenance issue? Is it a leasing issue? Is it a marketing issue? Is it a staffing issue? And then typically I can tell the story by just going through that pathway through AI generated BI tool.
Very similar as far as on our side too. I think that just depending upon like who the partners are, like that we are right now, like having service, like there's all these different efficiencies that are helping our team streamline like these types.
Are you guys finding that with kind of changing tenant expectations, changing investor expectations, how are you finding property managers are handling reshifting or reprioritizing their time and their resources?
I think that because of COVID, we had a big shift in asset management versus property management. And unfortunately, and fortunately, a lot of ownership groups hired regional managers to be asset managers. And so asset managers, instead of focusing on the financials and the stuff that makes their deals successful, they're focused on green grass and picking up garbage and blue pools and red curbs. And it's like, dude, that's our job. Let us do that job. You focus on the financial and we'll work together. This is a partnership. So I think reprioritizing and focusing the different roles on what is essential for their role is going to be imperative in the next couple of years.
I also think that, given the streamlining that's happening with all these efficiencies and the data, I think it's allowing more time for them to really focus on the things that, like the CapEx and like the futuristic planning, using that data to make those decisions and things like that. It's giving them back other opportunities to be able to be more tenant centric as far as creating an experience so that we, ensure retention and those types of things. So I think it's evolving in a way that's giving them the time that they need to really be a resource to our tenants and our clients.
I just know that our clients are bombarded very, very quickly, like in this day of instant information. And like, I know there's all these like ways that they can communicate with you. It's all the more important to like provide better service and increase uptime, because the moment there's a problem, you guys are getting flooded with texts and messages and all of that. So I've noticed that as there is more tech in real estate, there's also a lot more communication, which can be a good or bad thing. When back in the day, if it was just an email or you had to call in, there was some sort of like limit as how reachable property managers are. They're like right there online all the time now. So like uptime and service just has to be better than it used to be.
There's definitely an urgency factor there. I mean, we used to be able to like figure out what the problem is, come up with a solution, and then be like, hey, owner, I got this. Don't worry. We got it all figured out. And now they're finding out at the same time as us. And we're like, oh, okay, we're pivoting. We're going to make this happen. Don't worry. Problems happen every day. There's always going to be a solution and a way out of it, though. And that's our jobs.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, you mentioned also that there's been a shift, especially the last couple of years of, not only with investor expectations, but with resident or tenant expectations, and internally too, just the importance of focusing on renewal. What factors do you think are your property managers really taking into account to help drive that focus on site?
Yeah, it's really building a community is essential. They need to be doing the resident events. They need to be, saying hello when they walk by them. And they need to be doing a maintenance plus program. If they're in their units doing a work order, they need to do one more thing or leave a friendly note. I think that creating that community will entice them to stay. They're not moving. They're not going to move if they like their neighbors. They're not going to move if they're comfortable in their homes. They usually move for other factors. So we can't be part of that factor. We need to keep them happy. And if you keep your residents and the turnover's low, then you're going to have less turnover costs, less capital expenditures. So it's a win-win. But obviously every owner has their own business plan and expectations. So sometimes they do want the turnover, and we come up with different strategies for that too.
And I think on the commercial side, it's more so for the retention piece, making sure that we're staying competitive, making sure that our managers are being proactive as opposed to reactive. The communication piece, like Jeff mentioned, like it's extremely important. I think that the sense of urgency, to your point, I think it is out there and it is real. So making sure that we're really looking at our tenants as if they are our client and treating them in that certain way.
I can tell you that we make two promises. We say we're going to lower your utility costs and that we're going to make your tenants more comfortable. I don't think there's almost ever been a time where we've kept tenants more comfortable, and maybe they didn't want to reduce settings, or maybe they saw 5% or 10% savings, but the tenants were comfortable. You will never lose a client. So as long as we're doing our job to keep people comfortable, they will stay. There are instances where you can save them 25 or 30% on their utility bills, but if people complain, it's never worth it. So that just really just demonstrates the importance today of keeping people comfortable, because if you don't, people don't renew.
Absolutely. I think we have time for one more question. Curious on your takes, like, what does career progression look like for the next generation of property managers in this more tech-enabled environment?
Gosh, I hope that stays the same. I think that a lot of us in the property management industry have grown from within. I mean, I was a part-time leasing consultant and, made my way all the way up to COO at FPI. And now I'm a division president at Asset Living. And never in my wildest dreams did I think that was available to me. But hard work and dedication pay off. And so I think that living those examples and sharing that with people, I think that if they're flexible and adaptable and they do embrace the tech, it's only going to make them smarter and more successful in their careers. And you're going to see those people level up and take on, bigger roles within their organizations. I think there's also something to be said for loyalty. I think that, I've been with my company for 21 years now, and I think that the most successful people that are in our org are the people that have been there dedicated and loyal. I think we see a lot of people jumping around to the next best thing. And that makes me a little nervous, because I just don't think that they're going to have the opportunities if they continue to jump to the next best thing. The grass isn't greener on the other side. That's AstroTurf. Water your own lawn, fertilize it, take care of it. That AstroTurf will never deliver. And it's really hot.
And dirty.
It's smelly. I spent a lot of time on the soccer field with my son.
This is a good analogy. Let's keep going.
I agree with all of that. I think that, I really can't express enough what we have been used to as far as in the workforce is changing. All of the AI stuff that's coming, really think about the administrative tasks that happen day to day, whether it's invoice processing, whatever the basics of the job, that will probably end up going away to a certain effect for AI, right? So, to your point, I came into this role 25 years ago as a receptionist, as an administrative assistant, then a PM, just up the ladder. But that's changing. So the more tech-enabled that the newer generation is coming in, it'll be really interesting to see how it evolves.
Yeah. I think, we've said it, integrations are critical because there's just login fatigue. So managers that are able to navigate successful tech integrations, I think, are the future. And then my other takeaway is that more and more just communication with the on-sites, and managers that continue to know that the on-sites are what make it all happen. That's like the lifeblood. Those to us, those are the most successful managers that we work with.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that is all we have for today. Thank you so much for everyone to be here. And thank you to all of you for joining us on this discussion.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.